Testing 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, here we go. Yo, we're going to tell you when your segment ready. We're going to tell you when your segment.
What's up, ATL? This is ATL Straight Talk Radio, empowering the people. I got some great topics for you today. We got a very special guest, Dr. David Wright. We're going to go ahead and go into what we discussed last week. Last week we were talking about how to make a relationship successful. So we spoke with the gentleman, and we want to hear from the ladies. So I got ladies in the building. So before we get started, we're gonna go around the room and introduce ourselves. I'm Lady B, your host.
I'll be the co-host. This is the sister and brother collabo. We have our nephew, we have my dad, Daddy O. And like I said, we do have Dr. David Wright in the building. He's gonna give you guys some wisdom on different aspects of relationships. And also, he's an MD, so if you got some medical questions, you can call up here and spring them on him too. Home remedies.
And you can call the number 404-474-0080. We want to hear from you, or drop your comments in the comment section. All right, Dr. Wright.
Hello. How's it going?
Good.
Good to be here.
Awesome. Glad to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming, Doc.
Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about what you do and about yourself.
Okay, so
you have a very extensive resume.
Well, thank you. I got some extensive student loans that illustrate that too, unfortunately. But yeah, no, I have a practice here. It's an empowerment and prosperity practice. I graduated from medical school in 2010 with a 4.0 GPA from Xavier University School of Medicine. I also completed 3 master's degrees back to back during medical school. And the purpose of my practice is to help people to solve problems. And that's a very, very broad, general way of stating it. But in lots of communities, and it's not just the Black community, but in lots of communities of color, a lot of times we have trouble asking for help, and we have trouble admitting weaknesses and relying on our networks. And so the purpose of my practice is to help people learn to solve their problems, create solutions by relying on themselves and by relying on their social network. I'm not a psychiatrist. I don't play one on TV. But my practice isn't really opposed to psychiatry either. So I see people who have problems with procrastination. I see people who have problems with relationships, all kinds of things. But I also see and help people who've been diagnosed with a mental health disorder. But I see all types of people, so it's not necessarily a mental health practice. It's a prosperity practice.
Okay, Doc. You just said something about mental health, and something came to mind with you have a lot of. Well, right now it's like the few people that are playing in the NFL, they have made the awareness of this situation. So, because I know it goes on in the communities and stuff, but I never really looked at it. But then when they like Brandon Marshall was one guy that's been really been a strong advocate and pushing to let people know that this disease, this thing is happening. Have you came in contact with a lot of people? What field of people have you really come around with it as far as, you having to help them and talk to them and try to guide them in the right direction, even making people aware of it?
You mean in terms of brain injuries and CTE or?
More of the mental
health part
of it. The guy, like I said, Brandon Marshall, like he chimed in on it, and he's really pushing it. He made the world aware of it when he with him playing football. He was telling people, it was a certain situation that he got into it with his wife. His wife, I think it was a knife drawn. They had like a real big domestic situation.
Oh wow!
But he really needed help, and so he didn't know nothing was wrong with it. So I'm saying, when somebody, what are the signs and the symptoms of someone to really be like, I may have a problem. I need to go seek medical help, and that's something that you're saying that that's the field you're in, or you can help with that. So what are some of the things you can tell the people?
Right. So, and it's actually kind of related to the shooting, the park. I can't remember, Oak Park or Parkland or whatever, with the school shooting, with the kid who had made all these posts online, and the police have been called 40 times. The thing about it is generally speaking, it's not a mystery. People know that an individual has a problem, whether it's depression or schizophrenia or bipolar disorder or a substance addiction problem. The question isn't, if they have a problem. The question is who's going to help, and that's the reason why a lot of people don't want to jump in, because when you step up to help, then all of a sudden you claim a part of the responsibility for helping this person, and people don't want to do that alone. But if we did that as a community to help people in groups, it would be a lot easier to manage. So I think one of the aims of my practice is to destigmatize things. If you have a mental disorder, you have mental health issues, you have sadness, depression, bad moods, whatever it may be, hormonal imbalances, it's just like anything else. It's just like an ulcer or a stomach upset or an eye problem or anything else. It just happens to be in the brain. So, if somebody has a heart condition and they're born with a heart condition, we act like it's not their fault. And there's no stigma attached to having a heart condition. He was born with a faulty heart or whatever. But when it happens to be the brain, then all of a sudden it's a totally different thing. So one of the purposes of my practice is to take the stigma away from mental health. We all have mental health issues, from the most sane to the least sane of us. And there shouldn't be any stigma or shame attached to it. Just, we have to be there for one another. We have to help each other get help. And we have to realize that it's not a weakness. Right. It's not a deficiency. It's just something you have to address as an individual.
Right. And I think the people around you can recognize it. But then, we've grown up in the day, when people say, man, something wrong with him, and they kind of get away from it. They kind of
right.
So exactly. I understand what you're saying. As far as you can understand it or recognize it, you can put the person in proper position to seek help or to get help. And even with people, everyday walk of life. With me working in the club industry, I see a lot of people that come in and they ask for things and do things, and you're like, we can't do nothing to make you happy. Did you?
Well,
Did you take your medicine today?
Right.
I'm like,
right. Well, and then if you work in the club industry, and I'm not trying to stigmatize the club industry, I was born in 1973, but one of the things that I've seen a lot in my practice is I have a lot of middle class, lower, upper professionals, African American parents who will bring or send their kids to me because their kids are smoking weed all the time, and kids have this. I shouldn't say this generation, but a lot of people, because it's not just young kids who are smoking weed, but a lot of people have this notion that it's natural, it's herbal, it's not going to hurt you, and that is absolutely not the case. And so,
did you hear that? Did y'all hear that?
That's a huge issue. I mean, 90% of the people, 90% of the people who come in my office will test positive on a THC test, or just flat out admit that they do. And the thing about it is marijuana, THC, cannabinoids, they work on the dopaminergic pathway. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter in the brain. It's associated with happiness, complacency, all those types of things. If you have too much of it, then you end up with schizophrenia. If you have too little of it, then you end up with Parkinson's disease. And marijuana affects that system. So do you really want to play around with a system that if you have too much of something, you could end up with schizophrenia or psychosis, or too little, you end up with Parkinson's? I wouldn't want to mess with that. And not only that, but it's not like we're Colorado. In Colorado, they have all these different strains, and it's like a laboratory thing, and it's standardized. If you buy something off the street, you don't know what it's laced with. It could be laced with anything. You have no clue. It could be laced with LSD. And there's certain things that you do that cause permanent changes to the brain circuitry. And that's when you hear about somebody who did something and then he hasn't been right since.
Right.
That's that person.
Wow.
That's correct. Go ahead, Daddy.
Doc, I think another issue in regards to the medical profession is people being able to translate their feelings and their thoughts to words that the medical staff or doctor understand.
The cultural aspect.
Cultural aspect. I got an Indian doctor. I don't feel like I can express my feelings.
Right.
What's going on within me?
Right.
And for me to understand, because there's a language there.
And maybe a cultural barrier.
Yeah.
English, I can't speak Indian, so I can't express my feelings of what's going on within me. So very Indian term, I don't think I'm English. And sometimes feelings are hard to describe, or situations going on within you
Right.
are hard to describe. So communication is a big issue when it comes to related issues that's going on within you. You need to wrap up on it.
And then, in that respect, what I recommend that people do is to be active and proactive in your choice of a provider, of a service. When you go into the grocery store to buy groceries, you don't just pick up. People are picky. They want this cocoa butter. They want this lotion. They want this cheese. They don't, they want this, that. Some things they don't care, if they're buying some herbs or whatever for the kitchen, they might be generic about it. But if they're buying products for their hair, they want this or they want that, or their skin or whatever. So you need to be the same way about your provider. I mean, that's your health. So you don't want language and cultural barriers. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to be exactly like the person who's providing services to you, but you need to be able to communicate in a way where both parties understand each other. Because if there's a barrier, then something may get missed,
Right.
which could lead to inadequate care.
Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and
But hold on. Before you do that, I have one question that's really like still in my head, and the one that I want to ask you, because I'm sure there's plenty of listeners that are listening. What is your take on the legalizing of marijuana? I mean, I'm getting straight talk from the doc, because he can tell us best. And like he said, he mentioned something about Colorado. I guess if he was going to say anything about it, it'd probably be best to have it legalized. But I want to know his take on it. What's your take on it, Dr. Wright?
Right. So it's interesting because this topic has been around for a minute now, and even there's a southern state right now that's talking about legalizing medical marijuana. And we already know about California and Colorado and those places. I used to be a very active member of the Atlanta Medical Association, which is the oldest society of black physicians in America. established in 1890. And I also used to be on the board of directors associated with Morehouse School of Medicine. Absolutely. And so we had a panel discussion at a mall, and this topic came up. And when we were talking about hypertension and diabetes, there were only 2 or 3 people sitting around. But then when we started talking about pot and weed, next thing you know, the whole place is packed. And so here's what I think about it. My take: I am okay with the legalization of medical marijuana with guidelines in place to make sure the right people get the right thing. So, for instance, there are some disorders, and I think Dr. Sanjay Gupta did a big special on this on CNN. There are people who have tics and all types of disorders. One guy who hiccuped every second. There are people, there was a little girl that had hundreds of seizures every day. And actually, it wasn't the THC in marijuana that helped with her problem. It was another substance. But, if somebody has a debilitating illness like that, they're having seizures all day, why shouldn't they have something that's quality of life? So I'm all for the legalization of medical marijuana. However, I am not for the legalization of marijuana for recreational purposes. And the reason why is because of just what I talked about.
Right.
If you legalize, now, let me add a caveat to that. If you are, and I hate to put ages on things, but we live in the real world. If you are a retired grandmother and you're 72 and you live in Colorado and you want to, whatever, you've got arthritis, whatever, that's one story for recreational marijuana. But if you're an 18 or 19-year-old kid trying to graduate from high school, trying to get into college, studying for SATs, studying for ACTs, or trying to get into graduate school or whatever, that's not the time to be messing with your brain. So, right. And like I said, you never know what it's laced with. Right. You never know if it's the wrong formula or whatnot. So I'm not for the legalization of recreational marijuana. I think it also sends a signal to people that it's okay and it's not okay. And the reason why is what I just enumerated about. If you have too much dopamine, you can end up with schizophrenia or psychosis. And you have too little, you can end up with Parkinson's disease.
Right. Okay, so basically, you're okay with the medical
for certain conditions, for people with cancer, for people who have pain disorders, seizure disorders, epilepsy, convulsive disorders, tics, all those types of things where nothing else works.
Gotcha.
So those are the things you mentioned, how it did the brain, and not physical arthritis. Most of the conditions people like millions, that's the brain.
Right, the nervous system, yeah. So the nervous system, so the central nervous system is the brain and spinal cord. That's the main part of the nervous system. And then the rest of the nervous system is the peripheral nervous system. And that's all the nerves that go to your fingers, digits, hands, nose, eyes, all those types of things. Actually, eyes is a special category. But yeah, so, but something like Parkinson's affects not only the part in the center, it affects the spreading of those messages too. So it's that's why you have physical symptoms.
All right, so we're gonna go into the relationship piece, like we were.
Yeah, at the same time, the relationship piece is cool, but there's a lot of things. There are a lot of things with this marijuana, and how to protect your mind and all that good stuff. Okay, well, how about we just take a short break and play the music, and we'll come back and we'll go into the relationship part of the show and have the doc leave some of his information about relationships and some of the things he's done. Thank you. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Okay, so we're gonna go right back into segment. We're going back to the medical marijuana that Dr. Wright was talking about. All our viewers, go ahead and, like I said, you can call in if you have any questions for him. He got some great information for us, and also drop your comments in the box.
Also, Dr. Wright, we're gonna the question that we're gonna ask, that I was gonna ask, about the different medical drugs that the government gives us, as far as, you know, people are taking Percocets now, Xanax, but now people are taking those as recreational drugs now.
Yeah.
And what I was asking him was, because in the streets, because this is ATL talk, straight talk, in the streets, people are taking these things, and they also feel like, you know, I think those drugs are more addictive than marijuana. So that's why people will turn and go to the marijuana, because they feel like, you know, it calms you down. It makes you accessible to stress. You can kind of handle things better when you're on the marijuana. But then they got, like I said, they got these other drugs out now that will, you know, make you go to sleep, you know, so, and people get addicted to it. So I want to chime in and ask the doctor a question as far as how he feel about that and what he think about the government passing these, I mean, well, I guess letting people take these drugs and being prescribed these drugs from their physicians.
Okay, so here's my take on that. I think, and I don't think this is just America, but I think a lot of cultures, we have what we call elephants in the room. There are factors that are there that we don't talk about. Whether you're talking about sexuality, whether you're talking about race, whether you're talking about social class, whether you're talking about skin color, religion, we all have these little elephants in the room that we don't want to talk about. So when it comes to the opioid crisis and epidemic, that's the same way. A lot of narcotics, things that are prescribed for pain, when you put somebody on something, you have to have a strategy proactively for taking them off that thing.
Right.
Now, you can't just put somebody on something. Well, I don't think it's ethical to just put someone on something, you know, that could possibly harm them, but have no plan about titrating them off of that substance or taking them off of that. Mm-hmm. There has to be a plan, you know? And so when it comes to narcotics and opioids, I think there should be a plan in place. And you have a lot of people who become addicted. And sadly, a lot of individuals who become addicted to narcotics, they don't realize they're becoming addicted till it's too late. And then next thing you know, the person who's writing their prescription says, okay, well, you're an addict. You're addicted. You need a pain management physician. You need someone else. I can't prescribe to you anymore. Those types of things. And, you know, that's just not fair. That's not right. So in terms of the FDA, I think the FDA is approving a lot of things that maybe aren't as helpful. So one of the purposes of my practice is to try to bridge the gap between natural, holistic approaches and the other end of the spectrum where you have, psychotropic agents, pharmaceutical grade agents, things like that, because everybody doesn't need. There have been studies that have shown that meditation, hypnosis, yoga, all kinds of things, acupuncture, acupressure, all types of things actually help with pain management. So you don't have to go straight to a pill.
All right, Doc. I have a young lady in the room that has a question for you.
Okay. Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
So it's interesting about this topic because this is dear to my heart. I have a son that was born with sickle cell anemia, and he had pain crisis, and he's been on medication since he was young. The first time he took him to the doctor, they put him on morphine that could knock out like 6 adults,
Right.
but he was still up. Now moving forward today, he's 21 years old. He's on opioids. He's been on them since forever, but it's the only way to manage his pain.
Right.
When he was young, of course, you go to the children's hospital. They take care of that. That's no problem. The older he gets with a crisis, they act like he's addicted, which at some point his body is, because you can't.
Absolutely.
If he when he stops and he run out, his body have withdrawals and shakes.
Right.
Now he wants to get off of it, but he has sickle cell, which is
Right.
a pain crisis.
Right.
So that's a constant battle between, do I take this,
Right.
which is taking 30 milligrams of Percocet,
Right.
okay, to try to ease the pain of sickle cell. And a lot of people don't know what sickle cell is. The pain is unbearable.
Right.
Like if you don't have it, I can't even relate to him.
Right.
And he tells me that a lot. So he take it, and that sometimes don't even help the pain. What do you, for someone like sickle cell, as far as pain management, and I know you said whenever you put someone on these medications, there should be a triad to get them off of it. But what happens when it's not, when you can't get off of it, like as far as that goes?
So that's an interesting topic. So there are a lot of things that are going on in research right now. So there are a lot more things that we know about the brain, a lot more types of imaging studies and research that's being done right now, where you can see, they've got things where you can see what part of the brain lights up when you say a certain word or when you do something or you feel something. They're actually working on some technologies. In fact, they have some technologies for major depressive disorder right now that actually help, where you just basically sit in a chair with this helmet on, and they hook your head up to a computer and do these things, and you go like every day for a couple of weeks, and it actually will help with depression. That's called TMS. And they're actually working on applications for that, for bipolar disorder, for, maybe schizophrenia. And eventually they're going to come up with stuff like that for pain disorders too. So they'll have it one day where you can sit in a machine and that'll help take the pain away, things like that. However, until that technology is here and is proven to be safe, I think we need to explore other methods of solving pain issues, and we shouldn't go straight to pills. And I think hypnosis, hypnotherapy, like you mentioned about the acupuncture, acupressure, guided meditation, I think we need to explore more of those types of modalities for taking pain away. Once somebody is addicted to pain, then they need to go see an addiction specialist. One of the best addiction specialists in Atlanta is Dr. Todd Anton, and he's a quadruple board certified psychiatrist, and he's a quadruple board certified in adult addiction, forensic, and geriatric psychiatry, and so he gets a lot of people that he has to help with addiction issues, and help is out there. Now, when you talk about insurance and placement and payments and all those kind of things, it gets a little bit more squirrely, because addiction treatment is not cheap by any manner at all. However, there are community services boards in most counties in Georgia that will actually help people. For instance, there's a DeKalb County Community Services Board that helps provide mental health services either for free or on a sliding scale for people who don't have commercial health care insurance. But, you know, I'm glad you brought that up. That's a tough one. And, you know, and the other thing about it, too, is on the other end, we need to do more research on sickle cell anemia.
I think that's nobody
the
does. You know why? It's a black disease, basically an African American disease. So the money isn't being raised for the research. There's certain research they do, which is stem cell, but it's an extensive surgery, and you have to. And he's considered it because of the issues with the pain medication, and he's spoken to his hematologist, and his hematologist basically said, without this, if you go through your pain crisis, it's going to stress you. It's going to trigger something greater. So it's kind of like you.
It's a catch-22.
Exactly. That's exactly
you're
what
between
it is.
a rock and a hard place.
Right. So you don't want to experience the painful crisis that you may have and then not try to come off of it. He can't come off of it himself.
And I think that needs to be part of our system, part of our education system. We need more people to go into research.
Exactly.
We need, you know, if you look at unemployment rates, you know, this is a side topic, but, you know, there are all these things when you watch TV and they talk about how great the economy is for, but they never talk about how great it is and who it's great for. The economy is not doing great for most people. The economy is doing great for some really rich people and ultra rich and wealthy and those types of things. But for most, the honest Joe or Larry or whatever, Sheila, it's not going great. And, you know, and that's one of the reasons why we have the president that we have now, because there were elephants in the room that nobody wanted to talk about. A lot of people weren't doing great. And not that I'm going to go into, you know, that whole thing's of politics, but there are a lot of things that we don't talk about. But the economy is not going great for a lot of people. The healthcare system is not working for a lot of people. It really isn't. And to just like look at my own premiums, when I first moved to Georgia in January of 2007, I was a third-year medical school student, and I had a policy outside of our medical school, and my full dental, medical, and vision with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Georgia was $150 a month. Then it went up to $200, then $250. Now my policy is like $1,000 a month, you know, and it's crazy. So we need to put more of our resources and energy into health and research and things like that provide jobs and help the community.
Yeah, I want to tell a story about it was a situation. I was dating a young lady, and she mentioned to me that she had sickle cell trait. I don't know much about sickle cell. I'm a young guy. I'm maybe 22, 23. And just so happened she had a pain crisis on me. I didn't even know what it was. And I'm going to tell you people, that is the most, it's like somebody crying and you can't do nothing to help them, but you don't even know what's going on. And even when if you don't know about this situation and you call down to Grady and you call for ambulance, you're not going to be on the first thing. They're not going to come to you ASAP, because if you just tell them that she has pain or she's hurting, but if you say she's a sickle cell patient and she's having a pain crisis, they'll get there like you live in Buckhead. But this particular situation, I ended up having to tow her to the car and take her myself, because they said it wasn't like an important call. They had other calls. You know, you're in Atlanta, you're dealing with all kind of stuff, stab wounds, stabs, shots and victims, and there all kind of stuff going on. So I was on the back of the list. And so when I went down there, now Grady has one of the best sickle cell floors down there, and they took care of her. But the doctor pulled me to the side and told me that if I wouldn't have got her, that she could have died. But I didn't. Like I said, at the same time, that's how it was thrown upon me. So when the doctor said you need to do research on some of these things, you know, if you're dating somebody and they tell you that they have sickle cell, understand that they can have a crisis, and you need to be prepared to know what to do. You know, you got to act fast, because it'll take them out of here. But as far as the research, man, look into it and make sure you go talk to Dr. Wright, man, Dr. David Wright, man. He has some information here, Doc. Why don't you tell these people where you hold on, we're gonna take this call. We gotta call the people. Thank you for calling the show. You're talking to
ATL Straight Talk Radio. What you got?
Hey, this is Sandra. Am I on the air?
Yes, you are. Hey, Sandra.
Okay.
how you doing?
Hi.
Thank you for calling.
I know that. Hey, Sandra.
Click.
What's your question, Sandra?
I don't know if this is the segment, but I was calling because I have a relationship question.
Well, go ahead. Let's go right into it. We were talking.
What's your relationship question?
So I'm wondering, what are the signs that a guy is emotionally invested?
What are the signs?
What are the signs, Doc? Doc?
That he's emotionally what into you? Invested in you?
Emotionally invested.
Okay.
Spending money on
They're
this.
not-
I'm gonna ask you one question for the doc answer. How long have you guys been seeing each other?
Let's just say it's about 6 months.
Okay, go ahead, doc. You got 6 months. You need to know.
Okay, so here's some information for her sister. Okay, so there are a lot of ways to tell if somebody's emotionally invested in a relationship. They will show it in one way or another. They'll show it. So there's a book out there. If you haven't gotten this book, you definitely need to check out this book. It's one of the best books on relationships. It's called The 5 Languages of Love, I believe is what it's called. 5 Love Languages, something like that. You can find it on Amazon. And so basically the premise of the book is that people express love and caring and all of those different things in different ways. There's some, like, everyone has that aunt or that uncle, and they say something sarcastic or mean, but they're really a sweetheart inside. That's their way of showing love, even though it may not seem like that if you don't know them. So there's always that relative like that. So everybody expresses love and hate and things differently based on their personality, the culture they grow up in, their personal experiences, all those types of things. And so one of the things I would look for, if you're looking for somebody to see if they're emotionally invested, look how much time they give. How much of their time do they give you? How much of their attention do they give you? Do they call you oftenly? Do they buy you gifts? Not that necessarily translates into love. Do they walk the talk? So it depends on how the person expresses love, and affection. But if you aren't getting what you need out of it, then you need to communicate that to that person. So check out that book and find out what love language you have, and find out what love language your partner has, and see if there's a mismatch. If there's a mismatch, they could be showing you love in a million different ways, and for them, they're being obvious about it, and for you, it's a subtle thing that you can't even see. You need to be on the same page.
I'd like to know, caller, what made you ask this question? What is he doing to make you ask this question? What is he not doing to make you ask this question? Caller?
Or her sister.
Or her sister? Or your sister? Well, yeah, let me hear from you. She gone? Sunday, did you leave? Okay, well, you can ask that question next time, man.
Okay.
But you got Dr. Wright's message.
All right, what we're gonna do? We're gonna let Doc give you information like his where he practiced at. He gave us some cards. So I'm gonna let him plug it in. I would say it, but I'm gonna let him plug it in.
Okay, so yeah, I'd be happy to do that. So the name of my practice is MLC of Greater Atlanta, and the ML and C stand for Mentoring, Learning, and Coaching of Greater Atlanta. My office is located in Decatur, right across the street from the DeKalb Medical Center, 465 Winway, Decatur, Georgia, 30030. You can also find me in multiple places online. You can find me at www.mlcofga.com. You can also find me at www.thehealthemporium.com. I'm also on Facebook, LinkedIn, Yahoo, Google, Google Plus, Twitter, and just about every other platform you can think of online. And right now I'm actually offering discounts. So I like to partner with the community. So I'm partnering with a brilliant gentleman named Harold LaFall, who lives in California, and he has a tour that's coming to Atlanta called the You Are Enough Tour. And it's all about helping people get empowered. So I'm partnering with him. They'll be here, I believe it's maybe June the 16th or 17th. But so if you find, and I think the book is called I Am Enough. So if you buy the book, which I think is $20 on Amazon, something like that, then I'll match it and you'll get $25 off a therapy session in my office. And if you attend the conference, which I think the price of the tickets is $100, then you'll get that much off your initial consultation. So if you buy the book and attend the conference, which is $125, I'll match that and you'll get that off at my practice. And I'm also offering specials if you want to get a package deal. So for instance, my normal rate for a therapy session is $350 an hour. The normal rate for initial consultation for a single is $350. And so what I do right now is I can offer you, especially if you have insurance, Medicare, Medicaid, commercial insurance, I can give you a graduated rate and I can give you a package deal where the sessions end up being about anywhere between $50 and $100 a session instead of $350, which is like 80-90% off. So just contact me. I work with people.
And just know that we're gonna have Doc come back right before they do this thing on June. In June, we'll have him come back and tell us more about it as the date approaches. So
absolutely,
we're looking out for that. Man, Doc, great having you here, man. I appreciate it.
So much.
Absolutely, I'm
Such a pleasure.
I'm thankful to be here. It's a beautiful day today.
It is. So let me ask you a little bit about ADHD. And I think the different medications that they prescribe to children that have ADHD, those are medications that they have to be weaned off too. So can we talk a little bit about it?
Absolutely. So, sure. You want me to just dive right into it?
Yeah.
So, ADHD. So, so that's one of my specialties. I work with a lot of kids, adults, teens, adolescents who have ADHD or ADD. And people don't realize the hyperactivity form of ADD is only one type. There are about, depending on where you read, there are about 12 to 16 different types of ADD. Usually the kids who get caught with ADHD are the hyperactive ones because they garner the attention of everybody. They require more supervision. They get into trouble. They do all but there's also another type of ADHD called the inattentive type. And those are the kids who zone out. They go into their own little world. They're just kind of not there. I was one of those kids. Yeah, I mean, I can see that about. No, I'm kidding. I'm
Still do.
I'm joking. I'm joking. No, I'm joking. No, actually, you remind me of my dad. Actually, but
he did zone out a few minutes ago when he asked him the question. He was like,
I can vividly remember being in school and the teacher talking. My man was going, oh, I take your straw, take this ball.
oh wow. Right. And that's the thing about it. So a lot of times you see more boys who are diagnosed with ADHD than girls. And that's the reason why is because a lot of girls actually have the inattentive type where they just stare into space. And a lot of boys have that too. One of the things that they actually found maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago is that a lot of those kids who are staring into space are actually having seizures. They're actually having what are called absent seizures. And so a lot of people think that they're, Johnny, Susan, hey, here, Earth. Those kids aren't just ignoring stuff. They're actually having seizures. And so there are actually medications that could help. So if that's the case, if you have a child who zones out, things like that, you want to get them checked out and see if they're not having seizures. So there are multiple different types of ADHD. And not only do I help clients who've been diagnosed with ADHD by a psychiatrist, to augment their therapy. I'm also someone who grew up with ADHD. And so it's a personal thing for me too. And one thing I can tell you about the medications that are used to treat ADHD in general, most of them are stimulants, and there are a lot of different problems associated with them. They actually help with attention and focus because they activate the brainstem.
Hey, caller, you're on the air with ATL Straight Talk. How can we help you? Hey.
Hi.
Okay.
Oh, I don't know if I should jump into that one.
That's a good one.
Man, that
because
sounds like you've been here before. Who is that?
that was one that we talked about last time.
Okay.
So, we heard this from all the guys that they were saying that chivalry was dead. However, side pieces aren't. So.
Right.
I'm being real.
Right. No, keep it real.
He listening though. So, what's your thoughts?
So is chivalry dead? Okay, so in a lot of ways, I think chivalry is dead, or I wouldn't say dead. It's in a coma. But here's the thing. So men expect certain things of women. Women come with their expectations. In the end, it's a balance between the two, and. But see, the thing about it is you got a lot of guys, and I'm not trying to just take up for the guys. I'm going to talk about the female perspective too. But you got a lot of guys who may be chivalrous, and then they get taken advantage of. So a lot of good guys get taken advantage of. Yeah, and so they don't want to be chivalrous anymore because it didn't pay off. People do what pays off. Whatever their behavior is, they do what pays off. It's just like Pavlov's dogs. If they get rewarded for doing something, they're going to keep doing it. It's just like attention. People who do bad stuff and get attention, why do they keep doing it? Because it gets them attention, even if it's negative attention. So a lot of guys get burned that way. A lot of women get burned that way too by being, whatever. So the thing about it is people have to be resilient. They have to remain who they are and be consistent with their values, but at the same time not get taken advantage of. And that's a tight rope. I know, like, for instance, my brother Michael Wright, he works in education now, and he's also a personal trainer. And, he total opposite of me. I'm 5'10", 180 pounds. He's 6'4.5". I don't know what happened there. But anyway, so this girl that he was talking to, wanted to go out for a drink. And so he agreed, they decided to meet up for a drink. And then she shows up with herself and 3 of her friends and then proceeds to order 2 double shots and double drinks, not just for her, but her friends too. And then the bartender gives him the tab and he was like, I didn't order these cocktails. and then the price changed. It was $100 and something when he was going to pay for the drinks, but then when she was going to pay for the 6 drinks for them, then the price changed to like $50 or something. So, so there are men and women who take advantage of other people. Right. And for that matter, rich, poor, black, white, you can't put any of those labels on any one group. Individuals take advantage of other people. So what you have to do is you have to come up with a strategy where you protect your own interests, but you also allow the person that you are inside to shine. And so you have to learn when to say no, but don't say no to the wrong people. You need to come up with a strategy for that.
You have to call the question. So I hope you get your answer.
Okay, go ahead.
It's interesting that you stated that when your friend or your brother, the friend brought in 2 friends. I have a friend that we battle this constantly. We was out at a restaurant and she always talking about how, she need a companion, want a companion. We out eating. There's a guy sitting behind us. The waitress came and said, he just bought you a drink. We was getting ready to leave. And she was like, well, did he buy my friend one? And she was like, no, he just bought you one. Okay, well, let's go. She immediately got up, said, "Let's go." That's very disrespectful. I disagree because I was like, I don't need the drink. I don't want the drink. He wants you. He's looking at you for who you are. You're not on a dating site because now we got a lot of women on dating sites. You
Right.
saying what you look like. You may not look, but this guy
Right.
looking at you for who you are, what you look like. So he's offering you a drink. You don't want to take it because he didn't buy me a drink. I think that's crazy. I don't look for a man to buy me a drink but then you go into the fact that most men think women are so too independent and now you too much. But that's not it. I don't go to a bar to look for a man to buy me a drink. I don't expect that. I don't think that's right. And I feel like chivalry to me is like you said, everybody is different. And you got to find your love language or find out what you like in your relationship. I want somebody to open my door. I want you to, but if you don't, I can open my own door, but that's not
Right.
going to make or break the relationship.
Right.
And if I don't like something you're doing, I think I'm going to explain that. But I definitely think that nowadays women are more aggressive. They're very aggressive. So that causes chivalry to become
Right.
stagnant.
I think
The more aggressive
True.
you
we
are,
need to learn how to submit. You know, we need to let the man, treat us like a lady. Yeah, I want my man to hold my hand, show that PDA, and open my door. And
Right.
I like that.
Right.
But it's very hard to find because I've had guys when I'm walking with them, they just let the door slam in my face, and I'm looking at that. Now they don't know I'm critiquing that, but I'm like, okay, I mean the door just slammed right in my face.
Wow.
Slam right in my
And-
face, and I'm like, and then they act like they don't know anything.
Right. Right.
Now, it's a
Right.
difference if you don't know, but they don't. A lot of them don't know.
Right.
So how can we teach our black
I
men
teach my young men.
to be gentlemen, to be a gentleman?
Yeah. So I think that should be part of, I don't know if I should say it should be part of a curriculum or education, but it needs to be part of a system.
Right.
Right. It doesn't matter what you score on an ACT test or SAT test. If you don't have basic common sense or basic manners or basic values, things like that, it doesn't matter. And the thing about it is we live in such a fast-paced society that people are generally so hyper-focused on one thing or another that they neglect the other stuff.
Another thing is, a lot of kids are being raised on their parents.
True, true. And that's where mentoring comes in. We need more mentors.
And then the other thing is such a imbalance as far as the income.
But you mean between men and women?
Yes, it's like
Yes.
it's hard to find somebody that's gonna be your equal. You find yourself, I don't mind paying here and there, but I don't know. It's just that piece right
When I was growing up,
So that's a negotiation.
when I was growing up, you couldn't come pick me up and blow your horn in my father's driveway. He would walk out and say, she's not coming because that's disrespectful.
Right, right.
I taught my boys the same way. When they started dating, do not go in that driveway and blow the horn. That's
Daryl from Coming to America. That's who that is. That's the one with the Jerry curl who oiled up everybody's couches and stuff. Yeah, that's Daryl. He was like that. And Eddie Murphy's character was just just the opposite. Complete.
As usual, the topic always go, but this was a great topic. We enjoyed you, Dr. Wright.
Thank you.
Definitely
Honored.
gonna, stay in touch. We got some great events going on. We want to be a part of those.
Yep. Make sure the You Are Enough Empowerment Tour. If you don't do anything, attend that conference. You can find it on Facebook. You can find it on my page on Facebook. You can look up You Are Enough. You can look up Harold LaFall. Get the book. Go to the conference. Make an investment in yourself.
Happy Easter, everyone. See you next week at 3:00 here at ATL Straight Talk.
Anniversary.
Thank you. I'm honored.
Thank y'all.
Have a blessed one.